this last little while, we've been working our way through Paul's letter to the Ephesians. And Paul was writing to the church in Ephesus because he had a concern for them. And his concern was for their holiness or for their godliness or Christ-likeness. And this church that he was writing to were made up of people a lot like us today. Although they followed the ways of Christ, they still at times struggled with the same things that you and I may struggle with. Things like this, says Paul: bitterness, rage, anger, brawling, slander, addiction, selfishness, malice, revenge, greed, obscenity, foolish talk, coarse jokes, and so forth. Now, I'd have to admit that it's a rather extensive list that Paul has written here. Yet I think it's extensive and wide-ranging so that he can make this simple point. Followers of Christ, there is a battle going on, and it's a battle for your soul. And this battle, whatever it may be for you, left on its own, has the potential to wear you down and to sap your strength and ultimately draw you away from God. And so to counteract this from happening, Paul offers to the church in Ephesus and to us these words of wisdom: be strong in the Lord and in his mighty power. Put on all of God's armor so that you will be able to stand firm against all strategies of the devil. So there's a battle going on. And as I've already said, it's a battle for our souls. And in this battle, this is what Paul is calling us to do: to be strong in the Lord, to stand firm, and to resist. And we do this by metaphorically dressing ourselves in the truths of God. Now, before we let our imaginations run wild about what Paul was actually addressing here, listen to these words from the book of Isaiah. The Lord looked and was displeased to find there was no justice. He was amazed to see that no one intervened to help the oppressed. So he himself stepped in to save them with his strong arm, and his justice sustained him. He put on righteousness as his body's armor and placed the helmet of salvation on his head. He clothed himself with a robe of vengeance and wrapped himself in a cloak of divine passion. He will give justice to the poor and make fair decisions for the exploited. The earth will shake at the force of his word, and one breath from his mouth will destroy the wicked. He will wear righteousness like a belt and truth like an undergarment. In other words, what these verses from Isaiah tells us is that when God sees injustice, God does not ignore it. Instead, God armors up and fights for justice. And it is this tradition that Paul is drawing upon in his letter to the church in Ephesus. When trouble comes your way, says Paul, here is what you are to do. Metaphorically, put on the full armor of God. Or in other words, let God fight your battle. And you do this not by running away, but by standing firm and by turning over whatever it is that you are facing to God and to his mighty power. In fact, throughout the Old Testament, you'll find this principle of letting God fight your battles over and over again. To Moses, God says, the Lord himself will fight for you. Just stay calm. To Joshua, for the Lord your God fights for you, just as he has promised. To Isaiah, for I will fight those who fight you, and I will save your children. And finally, to Jeremiah, God says this: they will fight against you like an attacking army, but I will make you as secure as a fortified wall of bronze. They will not conquer you, for I am with you to protect and rescue you. I, the Lord, have spoken. Which brings me to ask, do you allow God to fight your battles? There's this brilliant little story found in the Old Testament about Elisha, and I'll finish with this story. Elisha was a prophet of God, and on one morning he and his servant step out of their tent to find that they were surrounded by an enemy. Now the servant, seeing all these soldiers and chariots and horses surrounding them, turns to Elisha and says, "What do we do now?" And I'd imagine that he expected Elisha to say, "Run, run is what we should do." But Elisha doesn't say that. Instead, he looks at the vast army, and then he turns to his servant and says, "There's a lot of them on their side. I'll give you that. But we have more on our side than what they have on their side." And at this, the servant's probably thinking that Elisha has lost his mind. He points to Elisha and counts 1, and then to himself, 2. 1, 2 against how many? To which Elisha replies, "Look up." And as the young man does, what he sees astounds him. For all along the ridge of the hillside is God's army. And it was an army filled with horses and chariots of fire. And it was an army far greater, far stronger in number and more powerful than what confronted them. And I tell this story so I can share this point. Your battle for holiness or for godliness or Christ-likeness, your battle for purity, your battle for being able to do the right thing at the right time, your battle against addiction or selfishness, your battle against bitterness, rage, anger, brawling or slander, your battle against your enemies, your battle against those things that want to tear you down, your battle against malice or revenge or greed, your battle against deceitful desires, your battle against obscenity or foolish talk or coarse jokes or so forth, your battle for your marriage or for your children or for your relationships or for your ill health. Have I covered everything? Your battle, whatever it is that you are facing, it cannot be won on your own or in your own strength. No, you need God. And I need God. So what is it that you are struggling with? What is it that haunts you? What is it that grips you or causing you to doubt or stripping you from your faith or taking you away from your relationship with God or with others? Whatever it is, in those moments when the enemy looks strong or it feels like it's surrounding you, in those moments, says Paul, don't try and fight on your own or in your own strength. Instead, stand firm, stand your ground and look up, turn to God and to pray. Or in other words, let God fight your battle. Do that, says Paul. And you'll not just overcome whatever it is the evil one throws your way, but in doing so, you'll become a person of strength, one who is strong in the Lord and in his mighty power. May God bless you.